I will first state the key point of this video. This is the issue of China's suppression of Uyghur Muslims. The serious issue is that in Xinjiang, there are countless facilities suspected to be vocational training centers, and, according to testimonies from victims, there have been specific accounts of electric shocks, water torture, and sexual abuse. Shocking testimonies have emerged regarding organized sexual assault. Hello, this is Global Insight. The reason you need to watch this video is that you must understand what kind of country. This is because appropriate responses are possible only when one is aware. Appropriately, and right next to China is North Korea, the worst human rights country, and the world must be aware of the human rights situation in both countries. The bloody retaliation caused by China's oppression of the Uyghurs. Why is IS targeting China? You may have heard the term Uyghur oppression. Recently, a restaurant in Kabul turned into chaos in an instant. A powerful explosion occurs at a restaurant, operated by Chinese people and primarily frequented by them. This incident, which resulted in the deaths of 7 people and injuries to 13 others, was a terrorist attack targeting China. The group behind the attack is none other than IS. In Afghanistan, which was seized by the Taliban in 2021, the extremist terrorist organization IS is active. They criticize the Taliban's rule as moderate and continue to carry out attacks, targeting civilians and foreigners to showcase their presence. So why does IS continue to target China? While the world rejected the Taliban, China was the first to reach out to the Taliban government. This is because China needed Afghanistan's rich mineral resources and the Taliban needed funding. It sends a message that the Taliban has no ability to protect foreign investors by attacking Chinese nationals. This is a strategy to undermine the Taliban's international credibility and hinder economic cooperation. The justification presented by IS in this terror attack is specific. This is the issue of China's suppression of Uyghur Muslims. The issue of Uyghur oppression is being raised again due to this recent terror incident. The Uyghur people, who are an ethnic minority, practice Islam. China does not recognize free religious activities. The international community has raised suspicions that China is detaining Uyghurs in forced labor camps and suppressing human rights. Even listening to Uyghur folk songs or sharing them on social media is defined as a crime, leading to severe penalties. IS is using this controversy over the oppression of Muslims as a justification to legitimize its acts of terrorism. They do this to justify their terrorism and to show their presence. So what is the real reason that China cannot give up Xinjiang Uyghur? China is the 4th largest country in the world by area. However, the land where the Han people, who make up over 90% of China's population, live, accounts for less than 50% of the total area. The rest is land of minority ethnic groups such as Uyghurs, Tibetans, and Mongolians. Among them, the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region is the place that has recently drawn global attention. But why is China tormenting this place? In the late 1940s, the Chinese Communist Party gained the support of the Uyghur people by promising to guarantee the right to self-determination for ethnic minorities. Deceived by this statement, the Uyghur people decided in 1955 to be incorporated into China's autonomous region. This was the Uyghur people's fatal mistake. There are 3 reasons why China cannot give up Xinjiang. 33% of China's crude oil production and 35% of its natural gas come from this region, and it accounts for 90% of China's cotton production and 20% of the world's. It is also said that there are significant deposits of rare earth elements and gold, which are crucial for advanced industries. And the starting point of Xi Jinping's key project, the Belt and Road Initiative, is Xinjiang. If we lose this place, the land route to Europe will be blocked. If Uyghur gains independence, other autonomous regions like Tibet and Inner Mongolia will also demand independence, which could lead to the collapse of the national system. The most important thing is that China has conducted about 40 nuclear tests in Xinjiang since 1964, and many Uyghurs have suffered from radiation damage. Jun Takata, a former representative of the Japan Radiation Protection Center, and an honorary professor at Sapporo Medical University, pointed out in a paper published in 2009, in a situation where appropriate nuclear protection measures are not in place, it pointed out that very dangerous nuclear tests were being conducted. And he claimed that due to the radiation, contamination from the 45 nuclear tests conducted in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, it is estimated that 190,000 Uyghurs died suddenly. There are also allegations that the Chinese authorities rented a nuclear test site to the Pakistani government in September 1986. Meanwhile, when the United States criticized the human rights issues in Xinjiang and Hong Kong, China reacted by calling it interference in internal affairs and strongly warned the U that the issues of Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Xinjiang are related to China's sovereignty and are a red line that must not be crossed. Since 2017, more than 1 million people have been detained in re-education camps in Xinjiang and forced to work. And the most shocking claim is that there have been reports of forced sterilizations targeting women. The EU, the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia have imposed sanctions on Chinese officials and institutions due to human rights abuses in Xinjiang, but China completely denies allegations of mass sterilizations and forced labor. According to the World Uyghur Congress, WUC, in Germany, it is estimated that about 1 million Uyghurs are living in countries other than China. Uyghurs living in exile often do not share stories about their family members who have been detained or gone missing in Xinjiang. This is due to concerns that the Chinese government may retaliate against them or their families. About 2/3 of those who testified to Amnesty International requested anonymity. Uyghurs say that the Chinese government has taken their families hostage to suppress their activities. They received warnings such as, "If you do not return to Xinjiang, we will detain your family," and "If you do not provide information about the Uyghurs around you, you will not be able to see your family," which is why they could not share any information related to the camps or news about their families in Xinjiang. Uyghur sources identified the WeChat app as the only means of communication with their families in Xinjiang, and the Chinese government tracked them using this WeChat, which is not encrypted and can be subject to surveillance by the Chinese government. For this reason, the United States has banned the download of WeChat. Additionally, it is reported that they received threatening phone calls aimed at collecting personal information, were threatened while trying to make public statements, and were asked to become informants. In this regard, there have been several cases where activists engaged in peaceful activities faced threats and assassination attempts during the investigation of Uyghurs, including instances where family members were taken away. Abdulrahim Geni, a prominent Uyghur activist from Amnesty International Netherlands, stated that he has been regularly followed and threatened by unidentified individuals, presumed to be Chinese. Since June 2018, he has been conducting weekly solo protests in Amsterdam, during which multiple Chinese individuals have appeared strongly, protesting that Abdulrahim is spreading false information. It is reported that they warned Abdulrahim that if he continued to protest, he would soon be killed, and in fact, there were threats of murder over the phone. However, it is unclear whether this group acted on behalf of the Chinese government. Additionally, the Chinese government is pressuring other countries to repatriate Uyghurs who have left China. In 2015, the Thai government repatriated over 100 Uyghurs who had applied for asylum in the country, and Egypt also forcibly repatriated 16 students in 2017, at the request of the Chinese government. However, since 2018, Germany and Sweden have officially promised not to forcibly repatriate Uyghurs or ethnic minorities from Xinjiang. In December 2019, a resolution regarding the situation of Uyghurs in China was passed by the European Parliament, emphasizing that the EU should make more efforts to ensure that Uyghurs are not threatened by the Chinese government. Additionally, international human rights organizations have claimed that since 2017, over 1 million Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities, including Kazakhs, have been detained, and that human rights violations and policies aimed at ethnic extermination, such as forced labor and sterilization procedures, have been carried out. In 2022, a report was released detailing the actual occurrence of human rights abuses, including torture and mistreatment, in the Xinjiang Uyghur region of China. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, also made a surprise announcement just 13 minutes before the end of her term. The serious issue is that in Xinjiang, there are countless facilities suspected to be vocational training centers, and, according to testimonies from victims, there have been specific accounts of electric shocks, water torture, and sexual abuse. Shocking testimonies have emerged regarding organized sexual assault, revealing that there were instances of torture and systematic rape in the detention centers. A woman who was imprisoned for 9 months revealed through a BBC broadcast that every night men would call female detainees into a black room without surveillance cameras to torture and rape them. Additionally, it is reported that some women were forced to assist in the rapes of men, and that there were cases where money was paid to choose pretty and young detainees. It is said that there were punishments where food was not provided, if one could not memorize books related to Chairman Xi Jinping. In November 2020, Pope Francis even mentioned the issue of the oppression of Uyghurs. The UN reported in 2022 that the rights violations in China's Xinjiang region could amount to crimes against humanity, but China has completely denied this. The Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, enacted in June 2022, is blocking the import of products from Xinjiang into the United States. However, China denies the allegations made by the West and human rights organizations. Additionally, Mongolians within China are also facing repression. The northern Mongolians came under the Mongolian People's Republic with Soviet support, while the southern Mongolians were incorporated into China's Inner Mongolia. From this time on, the Chinese Communist Party began to oppress the Mongolians. In September 2020, 300,000 people protested against the policy to abolish Mongolian language, education across Inner Mongolia, and the Mongolians initiated a movement to refuse their children's school attendance. Although this is unrelated to the oppression of ethnic minorities, there was previously the persecution of Falun Gong, and apart from special cases, there is no freedom of religion in China. China cannot have any ideology or thought other than communism, and the Chinese government's organ harvesting from Falun Gong practitioners was a serious international issue. In conclusion, it seems that the Chinese government has established a system to monitor Uyghurs 24 hours a day, even outside of the detention camps, through facial recognition, genetic data collection, and big data analysis. As international condemnation of the operation of the camps intensifies, detainees are being moved to factories or farms. The international community must go beyond mere expressions of regret and continue to demand joint investigations and the adoption of resolutions through international organizations such as the UN, Human Rights Council, and G7, and must work together to clearly communicate China's human rights violations. That's all. Please like and subscribe.